Thank you for listening to the Tattness podcast on the Tattness Co. Network.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. A Mercedes kind of sentiment, luxury, and trust in me to honor the free. We all should be. It seems my sundial burst into yin and yang, right and left me.
What's up, y'all? Welcome to the Tattness podcast. I have an amazing guest today. I'm super jazzed about this one. I'm always jazzed about all my guests, but this one in particular is very fascinating. This cat is an author, a producer, a president of a media entertainment group. There's so much to be said for this cat. He's a host of a show called Profiles, where he takes celebrities, he sits down with them and asks them questions, kind of like I do, in the sense of, more personal questions, not just about their jobs. And he's had, the likes of Jesse Ventura on his show, Bruce Campbell, just amazing people, man. So my guest is Mickey Burns, really cool guy. I really look forward to talking to him. Check it out.
All right. So how's it going?
It's going great. A pleasure to be on your show. Honor, actually, and welcome to New York City, as I said. Welcome to the Big Apple.
Well, thanks. It's nice to have you on. I hear you just had Eileen on your show.
I did. Matter of fact, we did. It aired this past Saturday night, and she's such a great person and interesting, and she's interviewed hundreds of celebrities over the years. And now she has her book, which is Waiting for Adam Ann, interviews and obsessions, and it was so much to talk about, and it was a great episode. And I've had, back in, I believe it was January, we were celebrating our 500th episode. So we've been doing this for a long time.
That's crazy. I know you got some pretty great guests that I've seen, and I saw that Eileen was going to be on, and her and I are in contact every day, so it's cool. She is definitely interesting, so.
Yeah, and so are the 500 guests that I've had on the show over the years.
No doubt. I can imagine the stories you must have.
Yeah. It's interesting, Keith, because sometimes what you take away from the interview, it could be something that happened before the interview.
Right.
Or something that happened after the interview. Not necessarily always in the body or the context of the interview. It's very strange, but I've had some great memories of all three parts of the interview process.
That's exactly why I do my show the way I do, like organic conversation rather than robotic Q&A, because you get more out of people. They aren't bored with it because it's not questions they've heard 1,000 times. Some people, they have higher ups that tell them what they have to ask and stuff like that.
Sure.
It's I'm sure if they wanted to, if they had the opportunity, they probably would have asked a lot of different questions that they want to know personally.
Yeah, well, that's another point. When I do my interviews, a lot of times I meet with the guest like 15 minutes before the interview. And they always say to me, "Oh, what are you going to talk about? What are you going to ask me?" And I always say to them, "No, I'm not going to give you that information now. I want to know, how's your golf game? What do you like to do when you're not working?" And it's amazing. And they're surprised at that, because most people give them affected questions. "Oh, I'm going to ask you this and that." But if you can talk about what they really like to do outside of their job,
right,
you can really create a great atmosphere, and you can kind of bond and build some trust during that 15 minutes. And I've always done that, and it's worked out really well.
Absolutely. That's exactly what I got through saying to somebody on one of my recent shows. I said, this is why I do it this way, because, maybe you're a musician and of course you're passionate about music.
Right.
That's your career. You have other interests that you may want to talk about, and nobody ever wants to know about that. They just want to know about, music industry questions and things. And it's like, at the end of the day, you're a person. You have other interests. You have a life. You have things you like. And right. You're not one-dimensional. So
that's exactly right.
Yeah.
I mean, I can remember when I had Smokey Robinson on the show. Now, he's written over 400 songs. He's a music icon. In that 15 minutes prior to the interview, all we talked about was golf because we had in common. By the time we started the interview, it was like we were lifelong friends, you know?
Absolutely.
Another sidebar story to that was the week before the interview, his publicist kept telling me, Mickey, you have 25 minutes, not a minute more, because we have other interviews that day. So we got to about the 24-minute, 23-minute mark, and I could see the publicist pointed to his watch. And Smokey also spotted him doing that. So he stopped the interview at that, because we tape it. He stopped the interview at that point, and he said, the publicist's name was Tony. And he pointed to Tony. He said, Tony, sit down. I'll tell you when we're done. I'm talking to my brother Mickey. And we were on another 25 minutes, and we ended up with a two-part, 2 episodes out of it, and both of them won Telly Awards. And I think that could all be traced back to the fact that we bonded over golf in that 15 minutes prior to the interview.
I agree. I mean, that's amazing. And I feel, even when I listen to radio shows and things of that nature, I get more engaged with it if it's an organic conversation where it's like you feel like you're a part of that conversation.
Absolutely.
Where, you know, questions and answers, it just seems so like, almost like, I don't know if it's the way it's done.
Yep.
Or if it's just the platform or the format of it. But sometimes it really seems like you're asking a question and it's like, yeah, that's great. Who cares? Because when someone answers the question, they might have something to follow that up with, but you don't ask that because it's on to the next question. So they don't get to elaborate.
Well, you have to listen. You know, as an interviewer, you need to listen as opposed to just going on to your next question and your next question.
Right.
It's going to be compelling. You need to do follow-up questions to the one that's just been answered.
Exactly. And I feel like I don't know, maybe they're not permitted to spend a certain amount of time. Maybe they're given a certain amount of time. I have no idea. I call the shots on my show. I don't have anybody telling me it has to be, you know, this, and this. So I don't really know all the ins and outs of that format. But I feel like a lot gets lost with that. And like you were saying, you know, everybody that I've had on my show thus far has asked to come back. And I've had so many, you know, say, here's my number, let's stay in touch and let's, you know, talk, whatever. And you're right. It's because you get to have that conversation and see who they are.
Well, interviewing is a real skill set, you know, and the key is to make it look easy, and it's not. But that's the key, making it look easy.
Right. I just did a show today with Jon Stewart, and he told me right off the bat, he said, I brought someone on the show with me because I'm not really a talker. He's like, I'm not a huge talker. And before I knew it, I had him just voluntarily throwing out stories and everything. I didn't really do anything to coax it or ask him things to put him on the spot. I would say something that would make him, you know, react.
Right. Well, he's a pretty smart guy.
Absolutely. And, you know, it's just things that I would say that he could relate, I suppose.
Yes.
And had a story that matched that he wanted to kind of contribute. And then he would go on even further into other stories because he was having a good time. So I was like, okay, that's great. That's what you want. You know, that's the challenging part is sometimes somebody has all the stories in the world, but maybe they're a little more introverted and they're not big talkers. And somehow I just seem to be able to get them to open up without even, you know, consciously doing anything.
Right. Well, that's a skill set that you have,
which is awesome. I mean,
not everyone has that.
Yeah, it's crazy. I never would have suspected, but you know, it's really cool because I've got a lot of cool stories out of people that I've had other hosts say, "Hey, I just had that person on my show."
I didn't get that.
Right? Yeah, like Sherry Nelson said that recently when I had Stephen Perkins on my show, and she's like, "We had him on the show, and he didn't talk about any of that stuff that you somehow got him to like open up about."
That's it.
I said it was just a conversation.
As I said, it's a skill set that not everyone has.
Yeah, I think it's a comfort zone thing, where certain people, they just get comfortable enough that they feel maybe engaged in the conversation, and it's not so generic.
And preparation has a lot to do with it as well.
Right. And yeah, I think, sometimes maybe when you expect it to be a Q&A kind of deal and it just ends up being a conversation where
Okay.
where there's no boundaries, you kind of like, okay, I can get into this, and then
Right.
before you
Right.
know it, you got a huge conversation on your hands.
I can remember one time I had an actor, Christopher Plummer, famous actor, oldest guy to win an Academy Award. And the week before the interview, my assistant handed me a packet with research, and it was posted on top of the research. And she said, before you get into the research, you should listen to the link that I'm on the post-it, which is a prior interview that he did a week before at a radio station in Ohio. So I said, I better listen to this. So I did. I went to the link, and Christopher was there to promote his autobiography. And the host asked him 2 or 3 questions that were not related to his autobiography. And Christopher stopped him in the middle of it and said, "Excuse me, son, did you read my book?" And the host, his best Jackie Gleason, humana, said, "No, but I've been meaning to." And with that, all you hear is a click. And he hung up on the guy, and that was the end of that interview.
Yeah.
So, research and preparation is also important.
Absolutely. And when you know somebody is there to promote something, especially, that's their order of business. Like, that's what
you better peek at it,
Yeah, and they want to promote it, not talk about something they've done like 12 years ago.
Well, he deemed it as disrespectful because he knew why he was coming on. The host knew why he was coming on the show, and he didn't look at the book.
Yeah, rookie mistake. I mean,
well, sure. It's like, how do you get to Carnegie Hall? Practice, practice, practice. How do you become a good interviewer? Research. It's the same. It's the same thing.
So you probably go through a ton of research with each person.
Well, if they have a book, I read it, and I speed read. So I mean, behind me, I don't know if you could see in Nova Scotia, but that's like 300 or 400 books. They've all been guests on my show. So if they have a book, I read it, and I take quotes from the book and read them on the air. If they have a new CD, I listen to it. If they have a new movie, I watch the trailer. And, that's just, I feel, a certain amount of giving them the respect that they deserve for giving their time to be on my show.
Exactly. I mean, you got to know somebody's work, at least to some extent, or else, what are you talking about?
And I'll tell you, almost every guest that I've had, when they realize that I've done this research, that I've given it that much respect, they appreciate it, and they express that appreciation on the air.
Yeah. It does mean plenty to have a clue, like what you're getting into.
I mean, they'll talk about almost anything, but they're there for a reason, and you need to focus on that as well.
Exactly. And that's why I always let people promote what they're doing. And,
absolutely.
I ask them where it can be found, because people these days, especially, I feel, they want everything handed to them. If you can tell them the name of something, but if you don't tell them where they can buy it, then
right. Like, I have a new book out, Keith.
See,
and my second book is coming out in November. But my first book is called From the Projects to Profiles, and it's a memoir. And I do talk a lot about my interview guests that I've had, but also how I've approached my craft as an interviewer. And I give a lot of tips of my experiences along the way. But this book, where can you get From the Projects to Profiles? Amazon.com, BarnesandNoble.com, Walmart.com. So it's pretty much everywhere. And in November, we have a coffee table book coming out, and it's called Inside Celebrity Profiles, A Visual Journey. And I'll tell you how that happened. One day, I have the same photographer who's been on the set for 20 years. And one day, his name is Robert Brunfeld. And one day I just, out of the blue, I said, Robert, how many pictures do you think you've taken over 20 years? And he said, well, that's a good question. Let me go home and check. He went home that night. He called me. He said, Mickey, I have 14,542 photos. I said, you're kidding. So the next day I talked to Eileen. I said, Eileen, we got almost 15,000 photos. She said, you should do a coffee table book. So she called our publisher, and within a week I had a contract for my second book. And it'll be out in November. And it will also be available at Barnes & Noble, Walmart, and what's the other, Amazon.com. So, and how do you find it? You can just put in Mickey Burns, B-U-R-N-S, and that'll take you to this book. And in November, both of the books will be there if you're interested in our celebrity series.
That's awesome. Yeah, there's a lot of people now with coffee table books that I love. I thought that's so cool that coming out. It seems to be coming back bigger than it used to be.
It's hot right now, especially since the pandemic. Book sales are up like 10%.
Exactly. And when I saw your first book, I thought that's a cool idea, because I love stories like that where it kind of describes, because I just got through telling Jon Stewart that everybody seems to think that when you become successful, it happened overnight. And there's so much they don't see, that you start off in a really brutal place and you work and you work and you work, and there's so much rejection along the way and disappointment and everything else, but you keep at it and eventually you get there. So I love books like that kind of shows the timeline that people aren't seeing.
Yeah, I don't know too many overnight successes. I mean, I didn't start out in the television business doing what I wanted. I started out as a sound man for the 10 o'clock news on Fox News in New York City, and made connections and honed my craft and learn. I mean, every day I was like a sponge watching the best do what they do. And when my time came, I was ready for it. But it took a number of years before that opportunity presented itself.
Exactly. It always starts out with being in the right place, getting your foot in the door, and,
people sometimes they think they know what they want, and the opportunity presents itself and they're not ready.
Right.
When you have the opportunity, you only get maybe one shot at it sometimes.
Right.
So if you're not ready, I mean, and you have to listen to people that you respect, other than your Uncle Joe and your best friend Tom, because they're going to tell you, oh, you're great. I want feedback from people who are anchormen and reporters at ABC and NBC, and that's what I got. I want feedback from people who are accomplished and will give me the unfiltered truth.
Exactly.
Right? If they tell you, oh, you're great, and you're not great, you're not ready.
No. Going into something with false confidence and no talent, no skill built up.
That's right.
That blows the first opportunity, and maybe the only opportunity.
Right. And when I was at Fox, just to give you another example, and I was working as a sound man on the news crews, they knew that I wanted to be in front of the camera. That was my goal. And they sent me to a coach.
There you go.
To prepare me for when the opportunity came, that I knew exactly what I needed to do. And that was tremendous help.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, gives you an idea what to expect.
I wasn't thinking anything, I knew what I had to do. I knew how to do it the right way. And I finally got my shot. And I've been on air now in New York City for over 25 years.
Wow. Yeah, it's, I have to agree with that completely, because, you'll have friends say, oh, you're doing awesome and this, that, and the third. And it's like, dude, you don't listen to my show at all. First of all, I know that for a fact. So it's usually they want something. It's when professionals have something complimentary to say that I take that very personally. I take that as a huge compliment, because that's what matters to me, because they've been doing it longer than me.
Right. And what you want to hear is, okay, you have potential, but you need to work on your diction. You need to work on your personality. You need to work on your appearance. You need to work on your eye contact with you. There's a lot of critiques that people can give you, and you can improve rapidly.
Exactly.
If you get it from the right people.
Exactly. And always be humble enough to take it and learn from it.
Right. And everyone needs a mentor.
That's right.
Yeah,
there's some people that their ego gets damaged, what I mean? A bruised ego, and then they give up on something because someone gives them, a piece of criticism that's actually a tool to get them better at what they're doing. And
right.
they take it the wrong way and they quit.
Yeah. Well, quitting is another thing. If you get enough people telling you that maybe this is not for you, maybe it is time to quit. But if people tell you they think you have something, then you should be determined never to quit and just keep honing those skills.
Yeah, I think in many ways that's kind of a lost art, is not wanting instant gratification. Wanting to work for it.
Yeah, they don't want to work. They want to come right in and be a reporter or an anchor, and that takes years of development, especially in this business. When I started out, it was BC. What BC stands for? Before cable.
Right.
And there was, 4 channels. You had ABC, NBC, CBS, and maybe a PBS channel. That was it. So if you were serious about this industry, there were no podcasts. You had to go to Boise, Idaho, and start at the 6 o'clock news there. And if you were really good, maybe you'd go to Baton Rouge next, and you'd work your way up to the bigger cities. That's the way it was for the last 50 years. Today, it's if you in television, it's still similar to that. I was lucky. I didn't have to leave New York, but I was one of the few. I was just lucky. Most people, they work the smaller markets and work their way back, and that could take 10 years to get a medium-sized market.
Right.
But with the podcast, it's a little different, because you could be discovered by what you do. Somebody could see you on your podcast and say, I like the way that guy looks. I like the way he talks to the guests. And you might have a job next week in Philadelphia. Who knows?
Yeah, it's crazy. The opportunity. Yeah.
There was no podcast when I was coming up.
Right. And
when I first started in this business, there were no computers. I used to have to go to the library to do my research.
There you go.
The very beginning, and then computers came in a couple of years later. But imagine that you wanted to do a story, you needed to research on someone. You went to the library.
Right.
You hoped you were able to find something.
Yeah, people are spoiled now, I think, and I don't know if maybe that's what it is that makes people think that everybody's in overnight success.
Yeah.
I feel like maybe it's because they want somebody to say that's how it worked, because then they think they have a shot, because they don't want to work for anything. Nobody seems to like to hear when they ask, how'd you do it? I busted my ass. I worked hard every day.
Right. Well, I come from that school, that you worked your way up, and it wasn't easy, and it took time and patience and improvement along the way. So no question. I do understand, Keith, exactly what you're saying.
It's like I get that question all the time. And I said, man, I started out with my business, like I have a clothing business, and among many other things. And I said, I started that out in some garbage little basement apartment in Ontario with no money. Like I was so broke, trying to get by. And I was just working on that all the time while doing my 9-to-5 thing. and nothing was handed to me. And I said, don't ever think that your friends are going to be like the reason why your business takes off, because the ones that tell you you need to do this will never buy a thing. You know, you're always at the mercy of strangers.
Make out with that business.
Over time, like, you know, it started 2016, and it took a lot of time to take off. It definitely improved over the years too, you know, in many ways.
Very good. That's good. I'm glad. And you did that business in Toronto?
Yeah, it's like a internet-based business, so I have no overhead except for the website.
Well, that's good.
So it worked out for this situation with the pandemic and everything. There's no store that you're still paying for, even though you can't have it open.
Yeah, well, you mentioned that. I was on Fifth Avenue in New York City near Rockefeller Center the other day, and there's a lot of stores that are boarded up.
Right.
And a lot of the reason is, you know, they're paying $100,000 a month rent.
Yeah.
You know, and if they don't have customers coming in to help them fray the cost of the rent, in a couple of months, they're out of business.
Exactly.
Haven't had any customers since March. So it's a scary thing to see how long it's going to take for New York to be what it once was.
Right. You know, it's been months now since they thought, oh, we'll just kind of, you know, wait this out a little bit. And within a couple weeks, we should be fine. No.
Have to wait it out if you're paying $100,000 a month rent.
Right. That's just not realistic. And
so and the restaurants are going through the same thing.
Exactly. And it's just crazy because so many businesses now are just kind of going under.
Will it come back? I hope so. You know, and I think it will. I mean, we came back from 9/11. That was as hard as it was on New Yorkers. This is much worse because seems like it's never going to end. You know.
Right. And I feel like New Yorkers are probably the most resilient people, man.
Well, you got to be tough here.
Yes.
You know, it's if you make it in New York, you got to have something going for you because it's very tough here.
Yeah, very competitive. I'm you know.
That's right. Absolutely. You know, but you know, it's also a great place to be, and it's the media capital of the world. So for guys like you and me, this is a place you want to be. Absolutely.
And, you know, I think that's great that it's so competitive because I think competition creates great.
I think you're right. Did I just lose you for a second?
I don't know.
Absolutely. I mean, we've done 500 episodes. And I got to tell you, we're always trying to improve on the last one.
There you go.
Have my staff, after every episode, sit down and watch the prior episode. And I always say to them, is there anything we could do to make this better? And there's always something there. There's always something. You know, it could be, Mickey, you know, you were looking at your notes too much. You know, you didn't follow up with it. You should have followed up with a question on her response. You know, maybe something in the set. You see that plant in the back? Maybe we put a, you know, there's always something you can do. And we're constantly after. We've never felt, you know, we've had 500 episodes. We've been on the air for 20 years. Hey, let's go do another show. No, we're trying to make this one the best one yet. And that's the mind frame that all of us have, you know, the whole team. Because it is competitive, you know?
Exactly. I think that's what creates longevity is constantly not on your laurels, but wanting to improve. And, you know, that differentiates and separates those that want to just get by and those that just want to thrive and get better.
The episode better be good.
Right.
Because after a while, if you're not producing stuff that is compelling and interesting, well then, you know, why do you have that airtime, that valuable airtime, you know? And I'll tell you, we at our network, NYC Media, that's New York City's official network. We have a team of lawyers that watch every frame of our show. to make sure that we don't say anything or do anything that can warrant a lawsuit to the network. So after we produce this great episode, then the lawyers go through with a fine-tooth comb, and they get back with feedback. So we have to deal with lawyers too.
No pressure though, right?
Jesse Ventura on about a year ago, and he's very big. He wrote a book about cannabis and marijuana. He's very pro marijuana, wants it legalized. And they came back at me. They were almost ready to take the episode off the air because I didn't give enough of the negative sides of marijuana. This is what you deal with in New York, you know.
I'm not even surprised that of all the guests, the one that caused that kind of issue.
Yeah, and about 3 times, and he's a great guest, really interesting. I love him.
I mean,
But he wanted to talk about the pros of marijuana, and I didn't rebut him enough on the negatives.
that's crazy, isn't it? I mean,
They let it air, but they made that comment.
and it's funny to me because here in Canada, across the board, it's all legal.
Yeah,
So, yeah, it's a different world. It seems in places where.
Yes, but that was just one example.
Right.
You know, there are others, but that's one example.
And it's always Jesse. I mean, he's got the conspiracy theory show and all that, so I know he's ruffled feathers.
I love. He's great and he's smart too.
He's brilliant. I love him.
We were talking about when he was in Predator.
Right.
He was the guy with the machine, you know.
Yep.
And there was some talk on the set who had the bigger arms, him or Schwarzenegger. And Arnold had a workout trailer, and I think they did this movie, The Predator, in Costa Rica somewhere in the jungle.
Yep.
And so Arnold told Jesse that he could use the trailer if he wanted, but they still had the competition who had the biggest arms, right? So Jesse said he used to find out what time Arnold was going to the workout trailer, and he would get there an hour before him. So when Arnold walked in, he'd be soaking wet. And then Arnold says, "Man, that Jesse, he's a maniac. I'm going to have to get up early tomorrow." Turns out that they finally measured both arms, and Jesse had bigger arms by an inch.
Wow.
Yeah. No more, but back when they were making Predator.
Right.
Yeah. But so we talked about that. He's an interesting guy.
Big time, yeah. Jesse, I'm a huge fan of everything that guy does because.
He's governor of Minnesota.
Exactly. I mean, he's a smart guy.
Yeah. Yep.
Like, you have to be intelligent, man, to do all he's done. And a Navy SEAL and all that. That's crazy.
He did it all. And he continues to do it. He's written like 20 books.
Yeah, I believe he's got a place in Mexico.
Yes, how do you know that?
I remember hearing that. He said that the property tax and whatnot is so much cheaper. And that if you paid it early, you even got a deduction. Yes.
Yeah, he goes to. He told me that he had aspirations to run for the president of Mexico once he can establish his citizenship.
Right, and he said that he doesn't even speak any Spanish.
You don't put anything by the guy,
Right, he said he just pantomimes and,
makes it happen.
I love it. I think he's brilliant. I think he's so interesting.
I do too.
I remember seeing that you had him on your show, and I was like envious as hell because I was like, "That's a brilliant guy to talk to, man. That's a cool show."
I've had him on 3 times.
Yeah, man.
Has so many books. And every time he has a book, I'll come on. He wants to come on and promote. He works it. He works his books.
Oh yeah. He's always busy.
He was the 2 guys that worked their books more than anybody was him and Dog the Bounty Hunter.
Wow.
Had him on twice. But boy, he would fill up his schedule with 10 interviews a day. Whatever they could get, he would do. Tirelessly. You know, I'm in New York to promote the book, fill my schedule up. And he did.
Yeah.
Another, love Dog the Bounty Hunter, you know?
That's the way to do it too. I mean, that's smart. You know, get it out there as much as possible.
Yeah, you'd be surprised. People, you know, they want to promote it. They want to promote their books and their CDs, but they don't want to do 10 interviews a day. You know, they want to do 4 interviews. They don't want to get too tired, you know?
Right. I think, you know, that's the difference too between the internet and putting, you know, feet on the ground and kind of going out and making appearances. That's going to win every time.
Well, you know, that's the advantage of these podcasts like yours, is that they can be in their living room and they can promote whatever they want to promote. They don't have to get on a plane, come into New York City, and head to Times Square, and then over to the village and down to downtown. That's a lot of work, a lot of wear and tear. And if they're not feeling good or they're tired, that's a burden for them.
Right.
They still do it, you know, but you can't get on the major networks unless you go. You know, now they can do it because they're doing the virtual thing.
Mm-hmm.
But I know that the networks and the channels here in New York, they hate the virtual thing. You know, I mean, they can't wait to get back to doing in studio what they do.
Right.
You know, I mean, and when will that happen? You know, it's starting now. I know that, you know, some like Jimmy Fallon, they've started to do shows again. I don't know if they have big audience, very small, but everyone hopes to get back to that.
Yeah, I mean, it's what you do, you know, and it's got to be so bizarre to try to do things so differently, and feel like at times maybe it feels like you're talking to yourself because there's a theoretical audience rather than people that you can literally see in the case of like the late night shows and stuff like that, in radio shows. You know, I feel like there's something to be said for having your guest sitting across from you. You can.
I 100%. I agree 100%. And it also, you're putting a lot of other people out of work.
Right.
You're the cameraman, you're putting the director, you're putting the makeup people. All these people are out of work.
That's right. There's so many people that, you know, don't even get considered that are struggling because, like, that puts them all out of business.
And it's been their career for decades, some of them, and now there's no place to work.
Right.
Look at the Broadway people, all the people involved there.
Exactly.
And they've been up 6 months, and they don't even have an idea when they're going to reopen.
That's scary.
Yeah. And a lot of people think, you know, oh, the host, you know, well, the host can do a visual show, you know, but, you know, the makeup person really can't. You know, the camera people can't. The sound people can't. The director can't. So they're all in dire straits right now.
Exactly. And it's a damn shame. And the fact that they get overlooked like that, people forget.
Right.
You know, it's like there's so many people. I forget who I was talking to about this, but I said it's kind of interesting to see how some people are really in a tough spot and how other people have kind of adapted pretty quickly and bounced back, you know, and maybe even thrived in some rare cases, just utilizing, it's like that mind for business or something, I guess, that...
Sure. There's opportunity for people who are creative. I mean, people going out of business, as I mentioned, in Manhattan, left and right. Yet, a group of guys just opened up a big store on Times Square, a COVID-19 supply store. And the people are waiting in lines to get in.
Right.
That was very creative. And they said they think there'll still be a need for the, you know, for the mask and the filters and all the things that people are using long after the virus settles down.
Right.
You know, it's not going to end forever. You know, you still want to get these apparatuses that can help fight off getting these diseases.
Exactly. And that's just brilliant. That's good business right there.
Smart, right? Very smart.
Yeah. And you have to be in order to kind of get through these things. And I feel like a lot of people started using the opportunity to do books and stuff like that they've kind of had on the shelf waiting to be done so they can release it almost immediately. I know Leland Squatter's got a book coming out.
Yep.
And that's
time these books because people are reading more than ever.
Yeah, absolutely. I just got one in the mail today. I'm friends with Mick Strawn, who was the production designer for Nightmare on Elm Street 3 and 4.
Right.
And he put together a book of stories from on set and pictures. And
well, that's what I did. That's basically same thing. And people will buy it like crazy if they're a fan of that series, that franchise.
And I love that concept. I think it's great. You know.
Yeah.
I was just saying that to John that I think a lot of people really dig that kind of book because it gives you breaks that fourth wall a little bit, and it gives you that look at what goes on. And sometimes the stories are more fascinating than the movies themselves and things like that.
Behind the scenes stuff. No question about it, Keith.
Some of it, I mean, you can't make it up, you know.
And it's a history and an overview of the series, you know. And if you're a fan, it's like Star Trek, you know. Eileen had a book, the Star Trek Medical Reference Guide.
I saw that.
How fantastic is that, you know? And then when they were doing the last Star Trek movie, they called up to get a copy of it because they wanted to know something about the one of the Klingons or something, and they thought they needed that information that might be in that book.
That's funny.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
I guess that would be a lot easier than looking back through all your scripts and everything, trying to find that information. It's like someone did the work for you.
That's it. Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting in my book, From the Project to Profiles, the last question I've been asking all 500 guests over the past 20 years is, what do you hope your legacy will be? And some of the questions, the responses have been, like, for instance, I remember what Jesse Ventura said. He said, I want to be the last man on earth without a cell phone.
Yeah, he's committed to it.
And I had Chuck Barris. Remember Chuck? Probably before your time, but he hosted a show called The Gong Show back in the 70s. Yep. And remember him?
Yep.
So I said, Chuck, what do you hope your legacy will be? And he said, I want it written on my tombstone, gonged at last. So he passed away about 6 years ago, and I got the New York Times, and he had his obituary in there. And it mentioned in the obituary that on his tombstone, it reads, gonged at last. So he got his wish.
That's amazing.
He got his wish.
I feel like Jesse is definitely committed to that whole thing because he hates telephones, man.
Well, he said, I never had to say, even when I was governor, I didn't have a cell phone. He said, people around me had cell phones, but I never did.
You know, you might have the right idea in many ways, you know. And
when he goes into Mexico, he's in the jungle in Mexico. He said, I don't have a cell phone. It's tough to get in touch with me. That's the way he wants it.
Exactly. Even I think he said emails and stuff too. He's not very great with.
Yeah, he's a very unique kind of guy. He said one time when he was in his jungle vacation home in Mexico, he had the radio on, and they said, well, there was an earthquake, so and so, and that, you know, close to where he was, they had tsunami warnings. So what does Jesse do? He puts his surfboard up on his Jeep, and he heads right for the beach. He says, there's going to be a tsunami. I want to ride it in. And he was serious.
Yeah.
He was serious. He said, man, imagine the waves we're going to get with that tsunami.
Oh, my God. He's of a different nature.
But I love him.
Oh, absolutely. Great. I mean, there's something to be said for a guy that can thrive without technology in a world that's become all about technology.
That makes his genius all the more recognizable, I think.
Oh, absolutely. It puts it on display for sure.
Right. Right. Do you have a lot of athletes on your program?
Not really. No, oddly enough.
I had George Foreman on, the heavyweight champ. He wanted to talk about everything but boxing. He talked a little bit about the Rumble in the Jungle, but he was really most proud of his success as a businessman.
Right.
With the Foreman Grill and he's a spokesperson for a ton of products. And he said something really profound. He said, Mickey, I'll tell you something. As a businessman, there's no such thing as a good business deal unless both parties are happy.
Exactly.
Isn't that interesting? Because most people always want the edge,
Mm-hmm.
the upper hand. And he was saying the key to his success as a businessman is I want both of us happy.
There you go. Repeat deal,
And I've had Joe Montana on. Remember Joe Montana, the quarterback?
Yep, absolutely.
I'll tell you a quick story, Keith. This won't take long. But he was in New Jersey at a memorabilia conference. So they said, okay, you could show up at 4:30, set up your lights, your camera, and we're going to do the interview in a hotel suite where he was staying. You come at 4:30, and at 5:45, Joe will be here, and you can do your interview. So we get there at 4:30, we set up the lights, get the sound perfect. We're ready to go in about an hour. And we know they put out a beautiful spread. I said, man, these people are classy. So we had lunch, potato salad, shrimp and ham and cheese. It was great. At 5:45, Joe walks in with his PR guy and his manager, and I see immediately the manager is giving me the finger like, Mickey, I need to talk to you. Come here for a second. I said, what the hell do we do? We didn't even start the interview, And he said, he looks me straight in the eye and he said, Mickey, who ate Joe's dinner? I thought it was for us, So I said, oh my God, I thought you put it out for us. So I started my interview off with Joe Montana, 4-time Super Bowl champion, by saying, Joe, I want to apologize for eating your dinner. We thought it was for us. And Joe said, I would never eat that garbage. After this is over, I'm going out to an Italian restaurant. So he kind of let us off the hook. So I don't know if he was, to this day, if he was serious or just trying to be nice. But the moral to that story, Keith, is never assume anything.
Exactly. To your point, it was really funny you said that. I was on a 3-day vacation. I was camping.
Yep.
And I sent me a text message with a link to the New York and LA Weekly Times top 50 shows. And I thought, oh, so you're just going to send me things that I'll never even be considered for. That's cool. And I laughed because I thought, I like, someone busting my chops. I'm good with that. It's funny. And then I see it, number 10. I'm like, how the hell?
Right. So you made number 10.
Absolutely, yeah.
So now you want to be number 1.
You got to always keep riding that.
How do you become the number 1 podcast? How do you do that?
You keep improving,
Who votes on it, and who says that your podcast is better than the 100 people that are below you on the list? I'm just curious.
So am I. I mean, I don't know if they go by analytics.
I'm sure there's reasons for it, and they might, I mean, I've seen some podcasts. Not all of them are good.
Right.
Some are very good.
Exactly. And it's funny. I just automatically was like, okay, so you're sending me this, and I thought, okay, they're on it. I'm sure, like Jimmy, and of course they were. So I was like, okay, that's why you're sending it. No problem. That's cool. I'll congratulate them and keep it moving, right? And go on.
They've been doing it forever. Jimmy, you meant Jimmy Starr.
Yeah. He's
been doing it how many years? I mean, 10 from the beginning of podcasts.
Exactly.
They
were number 1. They actually
they've been around forever. Exactly. And They've I don't know how many episodes they've done, but they're two interesting guys as well.
Oh, hilarious too. I had Ron.
I love that show.
Yeah, it's amazing. I love it too. I had Ron on my show, and it was funny as hell.
So your position now, doing your show from Nova Scotia, which is a wonderful thing to be able to do that. In an ideal world, where would you like to see your show in like 5 years from now? What's the best thing that can happen to your show?
Well, I mean, the way it's been going, I love it, and just being considered for all these things, I think is cool. And I'm somebody who I just got through saying today, my mentality's always been the one thing I can't stand. Somebody saying I paid my dues. It's like I pay my dues every day because the dues I paid yesterday don't count for today. That was then today's new work. You always have to keep working, and it would be obviously, 5-year plan or something would be get a decent amount of sponsorship or something like that.
Sure.
But to me, it's always forward focused. You know what I mean? I haven't even done 100 shows yet.
Right, but you will soon.
Exactly. You know what I mean? And but it's like
the beauty of it is you don't have to leave Nova Scotia right now.
Exactly.
I'm telling you, when I started out in the business, if you were serious about it, you had to go to Mississippi.
Mm-hmm.
Right. We're a town of 5,000 people, and hone your skills before you went to the next town.
Exactly.
You can hone yours, and you can put on a great show from where you want to live.
Exactly.
A big advantage as well.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, it's definitely a comfort zone kind of thing. But I think there's a lot to be said for the way you had to do it back in the day, because it showed, if you're going to go that far, first of all, it shows you want this.
Yeah, that's right. And you can talk to Jon Stewart in your studio in Nova Scotia. It's an amazing thing, really.
It really is. I mean, technology has come so far. It's insane when you think about it.
Right. You remember the first Wall Street movie with Michael Douglas?
Yeah.
And he had that big cell phone on the beach.
Yeah.
And that wasn't too long ago.
No, those things are bricks with a big, thick,
Yeah.
Hell,
that was 80s.
Right. And the big chargers that came with it, it looked like...
Oh, it's funny when you see it on TV. They show the movie. You say, "Oh, it looks so funny."
Right. When you plug it in, it looks like you're calling in an airstrike.
I was very resistant to give up my flip phone. I liked it so much,
Absolutely. I mean, they evolve so much. It's ridiculous.
Yes, it is. But technology has come a long way in a positive sense too.
It has.
I mean, what you could do today. I mean, I just had Bruce Campbell on. He's an actor that was in with Sam Raimi and the Evil. Was it the Evil Dead or something like that? The trilogy of films.
I love.
But you could actually do a film with a phone today.
Yep. It's nuts.
When he was first started, they had the film and they had to splice it and then find what scene was where. And he said, today you could probably make a feature film for $10,000.
Oh yeah, yeah. Especially with the horror industry.
That's right.
Because the more
right, cheesy is good.
Right, the more gritty it looks, the better it is.
Like when they first did Evil Dead, he said that when they went to the premiere, everyone was laughing. He said they didn't make the movie trying to be funny. They wanted to be scary. But it didn't work out that way.
No, but he's a funny guy too.
He is hilarious. I've had him on twice. Love Bruce Campbell.
I love that guy, man. Huge fan of that guy as a person and his work.
Yes. And Sam Raimi has risen to. I think he did the Spider-Man movies.
Yeah, he did. Yep.
And that's his high school buddy. They did high school together.
They turned that Evil Dead into a series too on Netflix.
He did. And then he had Ash the TV series after that.
Yeah.
And then in another, he was in a TV series as well, which he said he loved it because he was second fiddle. Said it's so great to be not the star but the second fiddle. A lot of lessons.
Yeah, he was on the old 90s Hercules TV series and Xena. Yeah.
But interesting guy. I loved having him on.
Yeah, he's a goal for me one day. I love that guy.
I'm trying to think. Each time I had him, had him on, he had a book. So, I think the key is finding out when their books are coming out.
Right.
And reaching out to the person at the publishing company, whether it be Simon & Schuster or whomever. They have people who handle, the celebrities and setting their interviews up.
Exactly.
So keep an eye out for when their next book, because he writes books every couple of years.
Yeah, absolutely. And, that to me, I think is one of the most rewarding parts of doing this kind of thing is the fascinating people you get to talk to.
Oh.
And the fact that I get to, I've become friends with people whose work I watched growing up, that worked on Nightmare on Elm Street, stuff like that. All these actors from movies I grew up with, and and now I'm friends with them, and it's crazy. It's really cool.
Amazing, right. Well, that's the beauty of this business, I think.
Absolutely. I mean, it's definitely one of the benefits.
I felt like that when I was sitting opposite Robert Wagner,
right?
Who was the biggest star on TV in the 70s and 80s. And I was sitting right there, and it's like you're having a conversation in your living room. It's fascinating business, no question.
Absolutely. If you're lucky enough to have that opportunity.
Luck, that's good. I always say better lucky than good sometimes.
Right. It's very true. I've seen some good people with some terrible luck, so...
That's it. Better lucky than good occasionally.
Once in a while, yeah, it certainly helps.
Right. But it won't last.
No.
Unless you're good as well.
Exactly. You can't, like I said, resting on your laurels and things like that, it's just not
going to happen.
No, it doesn't work. And I always tell people, like I said today, my whole thing is when you reach the top of a mountain, find a bigger one, start climbing again.
That's a good attitude.
You never get comfortable.
Most of the people I've had on my show over the years, and there's some big, big stars, they all tell me the same thing. Mickey, I love what I do so much that I would do it for nothing. But do me a favor, don't tell anybody I said that.
Right.
Same thing, Don't tell anybody I said that.
I've always said that. I said, I love certain things that I do as an industry. I love it so much I would do it for free, but they never stop sending them damn things in the mail called bills. So unfortunately,
that's right. Yeah.
But
most of them feel that they're blessed to do what they do. Show business is a phenomenal way to go, and most of them feel blessed that they've been able to have a career within it.
Absolutely. And I think that's great. If you love what you do, you never work a day in your life.
That is true.
It's it's rewarding as hell to be able to do that, and especially because how hard you have to work to get to that spot.
Yes, and staying there is even tougher.
Oh, absolutely. That's where the work begins.
And there's always somebody gunning for you.
That's what I always tell people is no matter what you accomplish, there's someone right behind you coming for your spot, so you can never get complacent.
And that's so true. It's so true.
Yeah, I try to explain to people, I've described it as the difference between the lion and the gazelle is the lion doesn't stop running till it eats. The gazelle stops running as soon as something's not chasing it anymore. You know what I mean? So
that's a good one.
That's the difference between those that the second they make a little progress, they think they can just relax.
Right.
And those of us that stay successful, it's because we keep on going. It's never enough. We have to keep on, accomplishing things. It's an obsession.
I agree.
Well, I appreciate your time. I don't want to take up more of it. I'm sure you got.
I kind of lost track of the time. It was something. And I must say, of all the interviews I've done, this was probably the most relaxing, and it was really a conversation as opposed to an interview. And I enjoyed it totally, and I appreciate you having me on your show.
Oh man, it was an honor. I had a blast, and I always lose track of time myself, and then things go really long, and I'm like, oh man, they have things to do. It's like I don't want to take up all their time, but it's great, man. I had a blast because you're so interesting, and it was just a great conversation, and that's what I aim for. I don't like things that seem too formal, because you get to know somebody better by just let them talk.
Well, I think you have a great future in this business. You keep at it, and I wish you continued success.
Thanks so much. It's a huge compliment. High praise coming from somebody that's so great at what they do. I take that very personally. I definitely appreciate that.
And next time you're in New York, give me a call and we'll have lunch.
Sounds great.
All right, Keith. You have a great evening, and let's talk again soon.
Hell yeah, thanks. You too. And anytime, come back anytime.
Would love to.
Awesome.
Have a good evening.
Thanks. You too.
Hey.
So that was Mickey Burns. What a cool guy. I mean, so much experience. Absolutely amazing. He has so many cool stories and so many amazing guests on his show. And with that many years, that have gone by, you would imagine, the experience has to be through the roof, and really cool stories, just more than you can imagine. And what high praise from such a legend. He obviously doesn't blow smoke up anybody's ass, which I love, but to get such high praise from someone like that says I have a bright future in what I do, that's actually really cool, man. I love things like that, and I seem to hear that from so many of these legends that have been doing this a hell of a lot longer than me. So I must be doing something right, you know what I'm saying? Stay humble and just keep grinding and put in work, and that's the goal. So, it's always nice to get feedback like that. I love it. So thanks for checking out the show, man, and I will catch your asses later.